ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from lunch. Right, so I'll introduce my colleagues up on stage. First of all, I'd love to introduce my oldest friend in China. Raymond and I have been friends and work colleagues for 13 years now.
Thank you, Simon.
Yeah, Raymond Lee is our China Practice Manager and our Chief Technology Officer. I'd then like to represent or introduce a gentleman who is acting as the ambassador for all of China today. His name is Evan Chen from an excellent Xiamen-based registrar called Nawang. We're very pleased to have you here today, Evan.
Thank you, Seven. I'm very pleasure to come here to know everybody, and I can share our experience for the domain name in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. And just as Evan is acting as ambassador for all of China, we're asking Patrick McCleery from Hexonet to act as ambassador for the rest of the world. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick, and I represent a company called Hexonet Services. We're a leading wholesale domain name registrar with offices in Germany and also in Vancouver, Canada. And I wanted to give a huge shout out to the entire DOMAINfest.Asia team for kicking off this fantastic inaugural event. It's going to be an excellent opportunity to learn and to network.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, so in 1 hour we're going to do our best with a new experiment. We call this experiment China Boot Camp. We're doing 4 boot camps here at DOMAINfest.Asia this week, and the first is for registrars. Now, I'll just give you a 30-second advertisement. Some of you may not be familiar with our work. Our company is called Allegravita. We've been working in China 13 years now. We are a strategic communications and public relations agency with a very strong practice in digital marketing and also corporate services. Effectively, we help foreign companies to enter and prosper in the Chinese market. And up on the screen, ladies and gents, you can see just a short list of our specific domain industry clients. We feel incredibly lucky to be working with many of the world's most expert and most excellent domain industry clients. Okay, China Bootcamp for registrars. China's retail domain name market is complex, with around 100 registrars selling domains through an overlapping network of resellers and resellers of resellers and resellers of resellers of resellers. Certain Chinese government policies such as ICP licenses, MIIT, content filtering, these factors further differentiate the Chinese landscape from the Western landscape. So the purpose of today's session is to help to gain an insight into the mind of the Chinese registrar and the foreign registrar. In this way, we hope that we won't have to leave meetings after we foreigners go onto the mainland. We won't leave meetings thinking, wow, they really didn't understand our business. Hopefully, through an initiative such as the China Bootcamp, we can help a much greater understanding of the key differences between the 2 different cultural techniques and approaches to operating a registrar business. Right, now we have 5 main objectives for today's session. In fact, for every China Bootcamp. Our first objective, I think I addressed in the opening comments of the session today. We want to enhance cross-cultural communication. We want China to be able to communicate more clearly with the West and vice versa. We want to get insights into China for our Western friends, and the opposite is true as well. We would like our Chinese friends to have greater insights into the business practices and business culture of Western companies. And we do all of this wonderful communication enhancing so that we can do better business. And we define better business as business which costs less and is more profitable. So a lower cost of sale, less wastage, for example, in your China market entry and China marketing and sales activities, and more of that profitable business. So these are the key objectives that we hope to help you achieve through your participation in China Bootcamp. Right, and before we go any further, I would just love to encourage everyone, if you are tweeting or using Weibo, the 2 hashtags that we're using on Twitter and Weibo are right up here. And those of you from the West that are not familiar with Weibo, it's effectively China's Twitter. Okay, now before we get into the interesting cultural differences and business differences between Chinese and Western registrar businesses, gentlemen, we'd like to just define a couple of terms, just for the record. We're going to define the term that we use for China, for Chinese language, for the Chinese world, and for foreigners. Okay, well this is a map of China. Many of our friends in China's mainland think that the map of China resembles a chicken. I can barely see that myself. This is a map that shows the concentration of registrars in China. The larger the dot, the more registrars in that city. So you can see that the distribution of registrar, and by the way, this is based on headquarters of registrars. As you know, most registrars have offices, many offices throughout the vast country that is China. So these dots only represent the headquarters office of China's registrars. So you can see that there's a vast concentration in the northern capital of Beijing, with the second largest concentration in Xiamen, which is where our friend Evan from Nawang is based. And here is just a different way of showing the same data. The higher the line, the greater number of registrars there. So in this map, we're defining China as China's mainland, including where we're standing right now, Macau, Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China, and Hong Kong, SAR of the People's Republic of China. And of course, the Chinese government and most Chinese people hold a view that Taiwan is a part of China. So we typically include all of these different territories when we talk about China. Now, I think it's really great that almost 1/4 of humanity, over 22% of human beings alive today on Earth are Chinese, or read, write, or speak Chinese. So when we talk about addressing China, when we talk about our China market entry, when we talk about developing a new business in China, we really want to remind all of our friends and partners and clients that China is so much more than just China mainland, the People's Republic of China. We always like to remind our friends and our clients that the sales and marketing campaigns that you develop, the localized Chinese branding that you develop, the packaging and go-to-market strategies that you may develop for your products or services, when you develop those for China, you can often reuse and repurpose those strategies and those materials in many other parts of the world. I mean, who knew that in the nation of Peru there are 1.3 million Chinese consumers? So surely at least 1 in 10 of those consumers is in the market for a domain name. So we just encourage you to think about the Chinese world in addition to the map of the People's Republic of China. Now, the second thing we'd like to define is Chinese language, and we always encourage our friends and our partners and clients to understand that the Chinese language is a vast collection of different languages and dialects. And we've just given you a quick example here of a recent infographic that our team has produced. You'll see in the very headline there that we've written that one English phrase, "Where are the domain name registrars of China?" in 3 different styles of Chinese language. The first being Mandarin, as spoken in the mainland and written in simplified Chinese characters. The second is Mandarin as it's written in Taiwan, in the older traditional characters with slightly different phrasing. And the third example is Cantonese, the local language right here in Macau and Hong Kong. And it's also written in the traditional characters and is also phrased slightly differently. So we always encourage, when we're talking about the Chinese language, we always remember that this is a diverse language group with distinctly different dialects and pronunciations and methods of writing language in Chinese characters. Okay, our final definition, ladies and gentlemen, is what Raymond and I often use, which is the word foreigner. So we need to always remind our clients, our Western clients, that when they're coming into China, you guys are the foreigners. So we may not feel like foreigners when we're in our home country, but when we're in China, we are guests of China, and therefore we are the foreigners. So I'd like to ask a quick quiz. Who in the audience can guess which one of these 2 guys is the foreigner? Okay. Oh, that would be the guy over there. Okay, so we're going to use this term foreigner throughout the rest of our China boot camps, just as a simple shortcut method of differentiating Chinese and foreigners, because this is precisely the term that's used in the People's Republic of China. Okay, so thanks for bearing with us while we just get those few important definitions out of the way. We'd now like to get into the content of our conversation today, gentlemen. We're going to talk about the interesting complexities and contrasts between Chinese and foreign registrars.
Okay.
Over to you, Raymond.
Yeah, Simon, I'll take it from here. Thank you. Thank you, Simon. And now we all know in China, there is a lot of difference between the China and foreign countries. For example, the point one is in China, the ordinary people, the non-IT related people, they are almost almost won't buy a domain name. They don't even know what a domain name is. This kind of people, they certainly don't set up their own websites. Okay. Point two, for the Chinese registrars, because of the point one, so ordinary people don't buy domain names. So for the Chinese registrars, most of the business is selling, the names are selling to the businesses and the small and medium and large companies and government organizations, such like that.
So Raymond, what you're saying is that my 15-year-old daughter who lives in New York City, she buys domain names because she has Tumblr blogs and, personal projects.
Yeah.
You're saying a typical 15-year-old girl in China's mainland is not going to be buying a domain.
Yeah. Definitely not. The third one, the blogging, the social media. The blogging may have many Western peoples do like to blog. You can search the web and find a lot of technical and business and other art and all kinds of blog pages. But in China, there is very few, rare. 10 years ago, maybe when the internet regulations is not that hard. In China, there are a lot of bloggers, but they are rare now. So, four is ICP. Yeah, because of all the regulations in China, China's internet. So, like ICP, if a person want to build a website, and he must acquire ICP license first. But that is not to say buy a domain name is hard enough. So most people have no idea how to do that, how to do the ICP, how to go through all the complications, and so that's make more complicated in China. When I say blogger, I mean the authors do have their own website. It's not like apply for in the Google's blogger.com or some blogger.wangi.com, netease.com, not like that, but have their own websites. So
this is an important distinction.
Yeah.
It's an interesting cultural distinction.
Yeah.
When we think about our own industry, the domain industry, when we think about Western domain industry websites, that is the news sites, they're all individual bloggers that all have their own websites. Kevin Murphy, for example, has DomainInsight.com. Andrew Alleman has DomainNameWire.com. Elliot Silver has DomainInvesting.com. You don't tend to get bloggers like that in China. Although there are many commenters, we won't take that away from you, but those commenters tend to be at DN, like the EJEE platform, for example. Yeah. So there's a much more common use of expressing your ideas via BBSs, for example, and aggregated sites that have commenters from very large numbers of commenters, as opposed to the individual blogger with an individual website and an individual domain name. I think that's the distinction we're making, Raymond.
Yeah, exactly. The Chinese registrars also sell the business of the domain because of all the above reasons. So the Chinese registrars will sell the domain names packaged with hosting and the SEO and all kinds of website services, not only domain names. So there was MIT regulations that not commonly you will see in the Western world, and content filtering. That is a big thing. So if you are Chinese, you are a website owner in China, you will mostly know what I mean. You will constantly get called from the authorities. So you have 20 minutes, to take down one specific page from your website. Otherwise, your server will be unplugged. So that's the difficulties.
In China, there are more than 4 million websites, and only 20,000 have got their ICP license for the business operation. And all the other websites, they only need to ask the administration that I will have a website to show some internet content. Then they will operate in the internet, and they don't need to get license. So only a little part of website need to get ICP license from the administration.
Yeah, I think we're generally addressing business. Thank you very much for the input. Again, we're generally addressing business users of domain names, business sites. So I know that our advice to our partners and our clients is always to apply for ICP and not presume that I can operate my website without full oversight by China's authorities. It's a somewhat dangerous idea to just presume that one can ignore the regulatory requirements of China's government. So we always advise our clients to be sure that they're fully in compliance with Chinese law, including a correct and up-to-date internet content provider license number. Okay, so we've now got 4 screens, gentlemen, of some of these key differences. We'd love to ask you guys for your individual insights on some of these key differences between your businesses. So I'll kick off with the first one, then maybe you and I can alternate each of these. Great, so here we're talking about the typical foreign registrar and the typical Chinese registrar. Now we do understand, of course, that there are a vast different number of types of registrars. There are registrars that operate entirely online sales. There are others that do no online sales and only have reseller networks. There are some corporate registrars that don't sell to retail customers, and others that are focused on particularly small areas of the retail business. Other registrars still only sell their domains to domain name investors, for example. So we do appreciate that there are many different kinds of registrar businesses. But for the purpose of China Bootcamp, to get a general idea of the differences between the Chinese approach and the Western approach or the foreign approach, we're talking about the typical Chinese registrar, gentlemen. Okay, so our first point that we'd like to get your insight into is that a typical foreign registrar has a relatively small staff, not too many staff members. And the typical Chinese registrar, I think, Evan, if you had 2 registrars, a foreign and a Chinese of about the same size, typically the Chinese registrar will have a lot more staff members. Would you comment on this interesting difference?
I would say for the most part that's quite accurate. The team that we have at Hexonet, we're not a huge team. We're lean and nimble, but it's comprised of, call it ballpark, 20 people.
Okay, and that's across 2 countries.
2 countries.
Across Germany
and Canada.
And that also includes your full technical development team, as well as the sales and marketing team, and management and finance. 20 people.
That's right. That's right.
Is it difficult to run your business, Patrick? Do you ever feel like you're severely understaffed, or does it feel like it's about the right size?
We are growing. We continue to add new staff, but the team we have in place right now, we're accomplishing tremendous things.
And how many domains under management do you have at Hexonet?
In total, it's approximately 2.6 million.
Okay.
So we're not the massive gorilla in the marketplace, but we've carved out a very nice niche for ourselves.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
And Evan, 可以说中文没有问题. Yeah.
In Nawang, we have 3 branch for the sale registration. One is department is for the reseller. Yeah, about 40 people. Yes. And the second is direct sales by online telephone. Yes, about 60 people. Yes. And the third department is our e-shop online. Yes, almost for the customer service. Yes.
And that's
so total
that's n.tt, I think, Evan.
Yes.
n.tt.
Yes. Yes. So total is over 100 colleagues.
And how many domains under management across all of the businesses?
About 150. Yes.
1.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about 100 people for 1.5 million
Yeah.
versus 20 people for 2.6 million.
Yes.
It's a pretty stark difference, isn't it? Yeah. Do you ever wish, Evan, that you had a smaller staff? I mean, do you ever look at the foreign registrar and think, wow, I wonder if we could do the same amount of business with a smaller group of people? Or is your business the right size? I mean, is it great to have so many people on staff? How do you guys feel?
I think in China we have to pay more attention to improve our customer service. So we have to prepare many people to repeat, to contact our end user, to remind his domain name registration is expiration day, and a new GTLD is coming in China. We will explain the new GTLD, the solution. Yes.
So I think in summary, what you're saying, Evan, is that to make your sales, to sell domains, it takes a lot more effort. It's more labour is needed, more work is needed to sell a domain than perhaps from a foreign registrar. It's interesting. Raymond.
Yeah. Okay. So as we know, the staff numbers, the difference of staff numbers, and also the difference from the management organizations, the way the company management. So typical foreign registrars, they tend to have flat management organizations. So maybe from top there will be a CEO. Then all other people are in the same level. So you don't have to be to report to levels and levels to get things done. Am I right, Patrick?
I would say overall it's relatively flat. We have a proper structured hierarchy in place. I used to work in Asia for 4 years back in the day in Tokyo, where there's extreme hierarchies, and it's not to that level at all. It's our companies. It's very, very casual, but there's a certain element of hierarchy, absolutely. Yeah.
And Evan, how's your perspective on the management style of hierarchy in the typical Chinese registrar?
Yes, and in our sales department, we have separate our colleague in before sales and online sales and after sales. Yes, and after sales we have a VIP customer. And another is our new customer. Yes, we have a working following to produce our end user to register our domain name. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, our third point of difference, gentlemen. In the typical foreign registrar, many staff can do many different jobs. So, however, I'm wondering, Evan, your perspective, would you ever consider taking someone from technical support department and asking them to do sales, or asking them to help with marketing, or ask someone from the finance department to go to a trade show or an expo like this and meet with customers? So, how much flexibility in the kind of job that your people can do? How much flexibility do you have in the typical Chinese registrar?
Because we are very focused online telephone sales, so about half percent will do the online telephone sales. Yes, and another half we always separate to. Just now I said is before sales and after sales. Yes, and they only to invoice the new customer to our. Just now we said is a public C. Public C is a group a new end user, and then our another. Just now I said is online sale or in sales. We are to choose the which one will have a purpose to register the domain name, and then our have a very powerful sales. We have to contact this end user to say how to use the new GTLD or how to use the GTLD to building the website to introduce them to buy the domain name and maybe to buy our other productions. Yes.
Patrick, what's your view on multitasking?
This is an easy one for me. So I mentioned earlier the team that we run, it's very lean, we're nimble. The expression we wear multiple hats is an absolute given. Right. So although my main focus would be sales, business development at Hexonet, I'll chip in for multiple blog posts, customer support. It's a given. But I would say at the end of the day, whether it's our support team or the guys who are really the technical gurus, we're all in customer service.
Right.
And we always have to have the perspective, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. Because without them registering domains, we don't have a business. So customer service in our particular industry is paramount.
Right. All right, so in summary, I think, Raymond, since you and I have to help many foreign registries to navigate Chinese registrars, I think one of the lessons of this insight is that when you're working with your Chinese registrars, you need to know the right person for the right job. If you're trying to achieve something in integration or in billing or in a certain part or even a geographical territory or a segment of the marketplace, you need to know who the right person in that role, in that department is.
Or you guys kicked everywhere, from this person to next person. And
and not without making any progress.
Yeah.
Great, okay.
Exactly. And for the next item, I want to ask Ivan about this. Do you feel any government oversight from this your business operations? Do you find any pressures or any complications about this kind of things? I know the recently MIT rules regulations are kind of tough for all the Chinese registrars, right? So how do you think about that?
And then, Patrick, we'll ask you how much oversight the Canadian and German governments have over your business.
Yes, just now, Mr. Lee said that our government will have expressed many policy to regulate our domain name registration floating. Yes, and especially in these days, we have extension registration policy, yes, such as the real name registration, yes. But I think it's better in Chinese registration marketing, yes. So as Nawang and other registrars in China, we also always to obey the Chinese government's rulers. Yes, we are prepare many work to change our registration system to follow our government's regulations. Yes, but it don't affect our domain name registration business. I think it's very better. Yes.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Patrick, I mean, I know that many European countries in the EU have very strict privacy laws, for example, which do impact the domain business. So how does government impact a typical foreign registrar?
I'm not
if at all.
Yeah, I'm not an expert when it comes to compliance, but I know in Germany in particular, they have very strict privacy protection laws. So
that affects the whois, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have an in-house lawyer that makes sure that she complies with all of that. On the Canadian side, there's relatively new legislation in place, anti-spam legislation. So from the sales team, we can't just send a potential Canadian customer a random email.
Right.
Otherwise, the fines could be several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
Serious.
we have to watch our boundaries, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting insight, isn't it,
Yeah.
Raymond? That we often presume that it's Chinese registrars that have a heavy hand of government regulation.
Yeah.
But actually, the typical foreign registrar has a lot of compliance that they have to stay on top of as well. Not even thinking about ICANN compliance, of course, which can also be very complicated.
Yeah. So so how the privacy regulations for you to to follow the rules? Do you have any difficulties, or do you have to put more efforts, many efforts to do that? And
Well, from the Canadian perspective, it sets up an additional sort of obstacle and an additional challenge to try and acquire new customers. Because before you could just send, random emails to, for example, a potential corporate customer, and now we have to be very, very careful. So, but there's different ways around it,
Okay.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Okay, so our next point is that we would advance the theory that for the typical foreign registrar, most customers are retail. Most customers are ordinary people, say small business people or bloggers or people that have a pet project that are looking for a domain name to attach to their project, their online project. Where our theory is that the typical Chinese registrar principally sells to business users or to IT users. Would you guys comment?
Yes, and I think the domain name must be applied online. So in Nawang, we are very focused in our just like an enterprise users. They will use his domain name to building their e-shop or their exhibition website online. He will let his company to show in the world, yes, and to popular their productions to everybody, yes. And IT in enterprise, we are also to introduce them to use the cloud technology, yes. Not only in the domain name and in our cloud hosting, yes, and data escrow and other business, yes.
I think, Evan, you've addressed the last point up here, which is that the typical foreign registrar only sells domains, where the typical Chinese registrar is selling the domain, the site, the hosting, the SEO, the advertising, the apps, and anything else that can be bundled in. Yeah, so thank you. Patrick, what would be your perspective on not necessarily the Hexonet business, but the average foreign registrar business? The profile of the customer, the average customer for an average foreign registrar, and maybe your approach to bundling also.
I'd say those points are quite accurate. In Hexonet's particular case, I mean, our roots are as a wholesale domain registrar, but
then again, you are the ambassador for the whole world right now, Patrick. So
yeah, but these days I would say bundling is I would say a lot more common. If we look at a company like the gorilla in the marketplace would be GoDaddy. They're experts at bundling and doing the upsell. Much more commonplace.
okay, great, Raymond.
So the secondary is so as a foreign registrars, they most of the, can I say most of the name sale is registered online for not from the phone call direct sales. No, can I say that? Yeah.
I'd say that's quite accurate.
Yeah. So
the majority, online.
yeah. So Yuan, how can you comment on this?
This is such an interesting differentiation, isn't it, between China and the West? And for many of our new clients, Raymond, that come to us, new registries that come to us that have never been to China, they are amazed to learn that most domains in China are sold via resellers and resellers of resellers.
Yeah. And
yes, and in our Nawang, and the about 30% is from the direct sales, and about 65% is for our reseller, and 5% is online sales.
okay, only
Yes.
5%.
Yes.
Okay. Wow,
Yes. So we have to pay our more working time in online telephone.
So I've often seen a situation with when some foreign registries are wondering why the Chinese registrar isn't doing better advertising on their homepage. They're saying, why aren't my domains being advertised on your homepage? And we'll say, well, most sales aren't being done through the homepage, so it's almost not worth the effort always to put a large effort into putting big advertising campaigns onto the online sales platform.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've addressed the importance of resellers in the Chinese market as well. Okay, so the typical foreign registrar would say, huh? What's an ICP?
Yeah, what's ICP?
But of course, the Chinese registrar is very concerned with ICP compliance.
Yeah.
Evan, could you maybe give us an insight into, how you provide ICPs or how you facilitate ICPs for your customers?
How do you help your customers to acquire an ICP? Yeah.
Yes, first, if our customer want to buy a domain name online in our Nawang, he has to prepare his ID or his company license to apply online in our website. That is first. And then our customer service will to identity his material is correct or not correct firstly. And then if our customer service prove his material, and then we will use our ICP system to send his material to our government to
Organizations, yeah.
identity. Yes, and maybe 5 days it can to return the registration is successful or failed. Yes.
Patrick, I don't think we need. Do you need to comment on the ICPs? Is there any such thing you've ever heard of from the average foreign registrar's perspective?
No, it's
a unique Chinese characteristic.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, gentlemen, let's talk about technical support. So you have customers that come to your website, Patrick, and the typical foreign registrar has a customer that comes to the website, never speaks to a human, buys the domain name or multiple domain names, checks out, and then gets on and resolves their sites. Evan, you're making sales over the phone, you're making direct sales, you're visiting key customers, you've got many other techniques for reaching your market. How does the need for technical support differ between the Chinese side and the foreign registrar? How much effort, how many people do you need to put onto technical support? How much expectation do you have that you'll need to give technical support to your customers?
I can speak from our perspective.
Yeah.
We're fortunate in that many of our resellers are very, they're quite, I would call them tech savvy, and which for us puts us in a perfect position because, as you guys know, in the domain industry, the margins are constantly shrinking. So the less support intensive it is, at the end of the day,
the more profitable.
More profitable. Yeah. A little bit different though with some of our, I can comment on some of our Asian customers.
Please.
For example, in Japan, there was a little bit more hand-holding that is involved. We have to go a little bit above and beyond because they're ultra detail oriented.
Right. Evan, how do you guys feel? How does the average Chinese registrar feel about providing technical support to your customers, your domain customers? And we're not talking about hosting support or SSL certificate support,
only
just domain support.
Just domain. Okay.
Yeah.
And in China, and many our end users will our registrar to provide them the DNS analysts. Yes, because DNS is very important in domain name, and many people will choose their DNS to change to this DNS service or change to another company. So many people want us to do this tech support. Yes.
So you're saying the average customer expects the registrar to handle their DNS zone file changes for them?
Yes.
Okay, that's an interesting insight.
Many
Thank you.
do this. Yes.
And that could be quite complicated. I mean, the zone file management is not complicated, but explaining zone file changes to the end user is one of the most complicated things you'll ever try to do, Patrick. Yeah. Okay, great. And while we're on that topic, how about propagation? I mean, since we're talking about zone file changes, you know, nowadays in most Western hosted zone files, propagation's pretty fast. You know, you remember yourself, Patrick and Raymond, only a few years ago, propagation could take 10 days or 14 days to get all around the world. How is propagation, how is DNS changes propagating? Are they propagating pretty fast in China, Evan?
Yes, and our end user, yes, and he very urge to use his domain name.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So he need us to solve their problem immediately.
To hurry the propagation along however possible.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of digging then. Okay, I think we're running pretty low on time now, Raymond. We've got about 10 minutes left. Maybe you'd like to introduce the third point for us to discuss.
Okay. And I got the feeling that we are using, since we are the China bootcamp, right?
Yeah.
We are using kind of too much English here, right? So maybe I'll ask this for Chinese. Okay, in Chinese for. 就通常这个中国的网民都通过这个搜索引擎或者这个输入关键字这种方式来浏览网站。那么这方面我想请这个纳网的陈一峰经理来就是也来阐述一下这块，你觉得这个是不是这么一个情况在中国？然后也说中文吧。
我们现在就是通过，特别是通过我们刚刚Seven 说的纳网的 N.TT eShop Online, we have a background to monitor our end user how to visit our eShop. Yes, actually, about 65% visit our N.TT by Baidu engine, search engine. Yes.
中文。
所以说我们认为就是说通过这个百度来搜索进入访问到各个网站的网民是非常多的，在纳网这边大概有75%是通过这种渠道来访问到我们的商城的。
那就是说，只有30%的网民是可能是直接通过输入网址，甚至于还不到30%，对吧？因为30%里面还有别的渠道过来的。
是的。
Yeah, it's a shocking statistic, isn't it, to the average foreign mind. But a vast majority of sites are visited by clicking on yellow pages. So like what Yahoo was originally, for example, Raymond,
in China
a big directory. 123. Yeah. Okay, great. Now, the typical netizen in the West understands the language that their domain name is written in, where the typical netizen in China doesn't necessarily comprehend what the domain name says. They're perfectly capable of typing those ASCII letters, but they don't necessarily have a deep understanding of what the domain name says.
Yeah. I remember one website that used to be called $1,000,000homepage.com.
Yeah.
So 如果是一个中国人，如果他想注册的话，一般我估计他是不会注册这么长的一个域名的。他可能会，比如说我举个可能不恰当的例子的话，如果是像微软 Microsoft.com， 如果微软的创始人是一个中国人，他可能会用 MS.com instead of Microsoft.com. Yeah.
Okay, we're on our last set of slides, guys. We have about 5 minutes to run, so we're doing well. Okay, so I would theorise to you gentlemen that the average domain sold by an average foreign registrar to an average buyer is pretty cheap. It's not going to break the bank. It's kind of pocket change. It's a couple of Starbucks maybe, the equivalent of a couple of cups of Starbucks. And my theory, Evan, is that the average domain sold by an average Chinese registrar is going to cost a lot more than 1 or 2 cups of Starbucks coffee. So there's quite a big difference and contrast in the average sale price for each transaction from a Western registrar and a Chinese registrar. Would you agree, Evan?
我讲中文吧。
中文嘛，讲中文嘛。
啊，对，就是说现在就是这个我们这个译名像这种，就是说刚刚说套餐这个东西。
对。
我们现在确实就是说会以这个点控的为这个主要的一个销售的一个。就相当于先锋，像 Pioneer 这种先锋样子，然后呢，会根据这个我们希望推销的哪一个新顶级啊，它有什么的特点呢？它有什么用途啊？还有说它有代表的特别的意思啊，会再包装一些产品出来。打个比方，比如说我们在这次那个7/7情人节的这个活动中，我们就有比如说买一个点控的，然后我们会送多少年的这个，比如说点我爱你呀，还有这个相当于这种点 love 啊这样子的一起捆绑来做一个销售。
So I'd suggest for foreign registries working with Chinese registrars, you need to be sure that there's plenty of profit margin available for your registrar partners in China. When your registrar partner in China says to you, I need more profit, I need a bigger profit margin, it's usually not because they're greedy. It's not because they're trying to gouge you. They just have all these additional on costs, technical support costs, for example, renewal costs. Even finding the registrant when renewal time comes is not an easy thing to do. So typically, the foreign registry that's able to offer a more profitable domain sale to Chinese registrars will do better with Chinese registrars.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the theory here, Raymond, that brand protection isn't all that important for foreign registrars. However, in China, there tends to be more brand squatting or cyber squatting, you might say, Evan.
Yeah.
Would you maybe talk about the Nawang approach to brand squatting?
是的，比如说早上我们刚好有跟一些同行在做交流的时候，比如说纳网这个的品牌，就有好多，比如说在其他纳网，因为是在厦门、北京、济南有分公司。
对。
那有时候我们就会收到一些客户说，哎，怎么我们在西安啊，或者在其他地方也有一个公司也叫纳网来要为我们提供这个译名注册的服务呢？哎，那这个反馈到我们的总公司，我们就没有这样子的一个的这个公司分公司或一个 branch 在这些地方，这是一个。第二个呢，就是现在译名现在都有这个 Sunrise 这个期间，那这个时候就必须要有这个品牌的 TMCH 的保护的这种的机制有上来。那我们现在呢也花了大量的工作来为我们的这些最终的客户来为他们宣导，就是有关这个 TMCH 的重要性。让一些比较注重这个品牌保护的这些公司呢，能够优先的通过 TMCH 的这个渠道来注册到他们有关他们商标或者他们需要保护的这些 brand 的这些的译名，这样子。
Okay, so our second from last idea about the main differences, Raymond, are that typically a foreign registrar is selling domains to people all over the world. So, the typical foreign registrar has got customers in New Zealand and in Pakistan and in Fiji and in the United States, and you don't really care where they come from, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And Evan, we'd suggest that the typical Chinese registrar sells to Chinese customers and doesn't tend to service foreign customers. Would you agree?
很少的中国的那个就是注册商会有这个就是专门的英文页面，对吧？只有就是大部分的，因为他们大部分的顾客都是中国的，然后他就只需要中文的注册页面，对吧？
除非是一些，比如说是一些overseas company, yeah, he needed to promotion his production to the overseas, so he needed English and or other language. Yes.
Right. Okay, so I have a question. It's a little bit difficult of a question, but we're friends, so I know I can ask a difficult question. Not talking about Nawang, talking about all Chinese registrars. Do Chinese registrars feel angry when a Chinese customer buys a domain from a foreign registrar?
Yes.
Yes.
我说中文吧哈。
说中文
当然，我作为中国的一个注册商，当然希望我们中国的客户是通过中国的注册商来购买并注册，还有续费还有包括说一个转移这些译名都在我们中国来做。但是呢，就是译名呢，毕竟这个是一个全球的一个 business。那还有这个信息又非常的这个透明特别是在价格这一方面我们确实也发现一些我们的 reseller 发现比如说 GoDaddy 他们哪一天有做一些special 的promotion 他们就可能会到这个国外去做一些注册然后还有一些呢就是有关这个特别是一些就长期他们有做一些海外业务的，他们会比较的注重是通过国外的一些注册商来注册，但应该大部分的还是通过国内的来注册。
Right, so in summary, Chinese registrars really do feel that China is their territory. Yeah, that's rightfully their territory. Okay.
It should
good
be.
Insight. Yeah, it's a good insight. Thank you, gentlemen. And our last point for today is I think we've already addressed that most sales are online from foreign registrars. And in China, Evan, I know that you've got an extra cost of business, an extra task you have to do. When you sell a domain, you also have to give the fapiao to the customer.
Invoice.
So many of the people watching the video today and here in the audience at DOMAINfest.Asia may not even understand what a fapiao is or why it's so important. So could you please give us the insight into that extra step that the Chinese registrar must do to give a fapiao?
是的，就是因为国内现在特别是国家对这个有关互联网的这些的活动或者叫做生意越来越重视，特别是在这些有关这个税务的这个监管这一边，也是要通过有正规的合同或者是发票来证明你的这个业务的是正规的。特别是针对一些现在需要上市的公司，它更是要求有这些多少年前的这些发票的这些的监管或者是审查还有在这个年度的这个财务报表这边，也是需要我们提供这个很详尽的这个，不管是这个线上的或者是 reseller 的这些业务的这些发票是必须的对。
So in summary, there's a special tax invoice that must be given to the customer, and that tax invoice is a paper invoice. It's not it's not an electronic PDF that can be automated through the sales pipeline from the registrar.
Yeah, that's how business in China.
Exactly.
The normal business in China.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Patrick, the typical foreign registrar doesn't need to be mailing pieces of paper to your registrants. There's another cost of sale, right? Yeah, okay. Well, this comes to the end of our China Bootcamp for registrars. Raymond, I think this has been a fantastic session. I've learnt so much more from you gentlemen today, representing China and the rest of the world. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short coffee break, and then after our coffee break, we have our second China Bootcamp session of DOMAINfest.Asia, which is China Bootcamp for Registries.
Registries for 注册局。
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. That's so good. Thank you, Patrick.